to Touch TV, the fabric of the Black community. I'm your host, Brother Charles Clemons Muhammad, and you are the best and the brightest. Touch TV, the fabric of the Black community, where you can feel, hear, and see the difference. And remember, Touch TV comes to you every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and on Saturday mornings, 12:30 a.m., which is really Friday into Saturday, 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Check us out on Comcast Channel 23, RCN Channel 83, Verizon 1960, and anywhere in the world at www.bnntv.org. And when you go to that page, make sure that you go down to Watch Now, select Channel 23. Bam, watch it, and then we'll come on and it's right there. Also, if you miss any of the episodes on that same webpage, that first webpage, top right, you'll see VOD, Video on Demand, and you can check all of our shows that we've had for the past 5 years. Wow, 5 years. And you make it possible. If you'd like to be a guest here on Touch TV, it's real simple. You can email me at charles4boston@gmail.com. That's F-O-R, charles4boston@gmail.com. Or text me at 617-334-4639. 617-334-4639. We have a fantastic, awesome, and amazing show just for you. But first, let's start off with the Final Call newspaper. Yes, the Final Call newspaper is in our town right now. And you can get the copy, the latest copy of the Final Call newspaper by texting me at 617-334-4639, or you can email me at charles4boston@gmail.com. Whether it be the latest edition of the Final Call newspaper or a past edition of the Final Call newspaper. And yes, we have one of our past editions that's going to come up right about now. There we go. Final Call newspaper. Black owned, Black published, uncompromised, unbought, the truth. Local, national, international news through the Black lens. Also, we want to remind you that coming up in December on the 13th and the 14th, the Black Bazaar is going to be taking place at Unity Plaza. Buy Black, Unity Bazaar, right next to Muhammad's Mosque number 11, and is sponsored by Muhammad's Mosque number 11. And our motto is up with Jesus, down with Santa. And we want you to support Black businesses for sure. It's Touch TV, the fabric of the Black community. And if you need any information about the bazaar, you can hit me back at 617-334-4639. That's 617-334-4639. Text me because you want to purchase some items from a Black business, or you might want to be a vendor. So hit me up. We're going to take a little pause for the cause. When we come back, we're going to be talking about food, spiritual, mental, and physical food, just for you. Don't touch that dial.
Teach, is that right, Andy?
Completed the 3rd grade at Marva Collins Westside Preparatory School. Tonight, I'm extremely honored to pay tribute to some of our greatest leaders and teachers. The Minister Louis Farrakhan, and also
know we're gonna come back with some more Ayande. He was 7 years old at the time that he did this speech right here. And then you probably remember him when he was 13 years old at the Million Man March 24 years ago. Ooh, I still get goosebumps every time I hear this young brother. But we're gonna have more of him a little later on in the show. Right now, it's time for me to introduce to you the owner and the head chef of Zaz Restaurant, conveniently located in beautiful Hyde Park, on River Street, right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
So, Olrie Roberts, let's start off with Zaz, the name Zaz. Where did that come from?
So the name Zaz derived from my kids, my older kids. My daughter's name is Zaria. My son's is Zaylen. So I said I want to create a concept or name after my kids. So then I said, if I do the Z's, I could do Zaria and Zaylen, so that's a Z-A-Z.
Right. All right, well, so tell us a little bit about your background when it comes to food, because the food industry is very hard to maintain because the profit margin isn't that great, is it?
Exactly. And for me, I grew up with my grandparents for the first few years, so I always admire them cooking. I'm from the Caribbean, from Grenada, and so my culture, we had to learn how to cook at a young age. For most of us, we had to know how to do our own thing in the house. So watching my parents, watching my grandparents really taught me, I guess, the elementary stuff with cooking, like how to make rice, how to do traditional stuff like curry and so forth. But I then came to the States, and even before I became a chef, I was a welder. I was actually doing the total opposite profession. But I always loved cooking, and that led me to go, work at a couple of different places, and eventually I went to culinary school, and that started the whole journey. But you're right, though. It's definitely, it's quite a journey in terms of you can't do it for the money. Passion has to be the forefront.
Well, while we're having this interview, we're going to show some of the delicacies that you offer. Now, with your restaurant, you've been in business for 7 years.
7 years.
How have you survived for 7 years?
I think I had to learn, you got to adapt and learn how to pivot during different times. I kind of got into the catering part of it. That really helped, in terms of monetary and being able to figure ways to make money on the slow months of holiday parties and so forth. So just learning how to kind of be diverse and understanding the business for the most part.
And here we have one of those displays, your fruit displays.
And that was an event at one of our client's house. We do an annual event at Shelly Mendes' house. And so that event really kind of, we try to make the display very colorful, very
like the Caribbean.
Yeah, basically. A lot of fruits and so forth. So,
right. Okay, and not only do you do the fruits, and here we have another one of your dishes.
Yeah. And we mix it up with the sweets on the catering aspect. Like I said, we try to promote the catering a lot now because we like to do the private events, we do the weddings, we do parties and so forth. So the sweets and kind of mix it up.
So your restaurant, you serve breakfast, brunch, and dinner.
Yep, all day. So you can get a waffle at 9 a.m. or actually at 11 a.m. or at 9 p.m. We do it all day.
And let's talk about your clientele that you cater to. Now, your restaurant is really different because it's a fusion of...
It's a fusion of Caribbean, Asian, and Latin fusion. I lived in Spain for a little bit, so I kind of picked up some of that concept over there as well, and spices by living there. And then also I was trained, one of my mentors is Thai from Thailand. So I was trained by an Asian chef as well.
Really?
So being able to kind of implement all those flavors in terms of accompany with what I grew up with, kind of give that blend.
So remind me again, it's
Caribbean, Asian, and Latin, Spanish style in it.
Latin.
Yeah.
Ooh, I know that's delicious.
Yeah, we mix it up.
All right, now you do your catering because the catering that kind of helps because being in a restaurant, I understand that profit margin is kind of low, but you get into the catering, that's what happens there.
Way better.
So let's talk about Caribbean jerk. You got to have some jerk in there.
Oh yeah.
So you get the jerk. Chicken, and now you know I don't eat pork, so we ain't gonna mention no pork up on here, all right? So you get the jerk chicken, and what else do you have?
Jerk shrimp, jerk salmon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we do a lot
Jerk
of
salmon?
Yep, we do a lot of jerk, and we try, again, we mix it up. So like if you follow us on Instagram or social media, you see a lot of the live feeds. We do a lot of live videos and so forth of how we make stuff. And
last night I was on not your Instagram. I actually went on your Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Your Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, I got hungry last night, and I'm only supposed to be eating one meal a day, right? But my only problem is the 2 meals at night. So the food that you have on there, the videos and the pictures and whatnot. Yeah. So let's talk about your address, your exact location, hours of operation, and how people can get in contact with you.
Right, so we at 1238 River Street in Hyde Park. That's right around close to the police station, the Bank of America area over there at Cleary Square. And we open from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. We have a 2-hour break in the middle, so we have a 2 to 4 break. So you basically come in at 11 to 2, and then from 4 to close. Okay. And you could find us on Facebook at Zaz Restaurant and Catering. Instagram at Zaz Restaurant, and Snapchat for the youngins at Zaz Chef O on Snapchat. And so we just have a different variety of social media to kind of reach out to different people out there.
Now, why do you close down for 2 hours?
So that's a concept. When I lived in Spain, they did that. They did the whole 2-hour thing, and I kind of liked it because when I came back, I said, not only it would allow me to do stuff like this, where I could kind of leave, and because I'm the main chef, so I could leave and do errands. But also, if I have a meeting or an event or so forth, I could kind of go plan for the evening shift.
Right. So you mentioned the 2 hours, because I do understand that they have these in certain countries, siestas, where you get to eat and then relax a little bit before you go back to work.
Right. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
We have the Latin, Caribbean, and Asian fusion.
Yep. Yes, indeed.
I'm a little. I'm getting hungry right now.
And we try to do what we're doing a lot lately now is provide for the vegans, the vegetarians. I know it's like it's a different time now. A lot of people are more health conscious, so we try to do a lot of menu concepts cater towards diet restrictions, gluten-free, and a lot of like veggies. Like one of my mantras is, we aren't fast food, we are fresh food. So a lot of the foods, 95% of the food is made to order. And we purposely do that to kind of give the customers a fresh taste of what we're doing.
Now repeat that again.
We are fast food, not fresh food.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm sorry, we are not fast food, we are fresh food.
Okay, all right. And also you also say prayer is a part of my business strategy.
Yes, indeed.
I like that. Why prayer?
Because I've learned, this is my 7th year doing this, and fasting and praying has helped me through a lot of difficult times. And, I feel like the spiritual connection had to be there during those times, and it's a tough industry. And it kind of, it makes you a man quickly, So like for me, getting on my knees and really spending time has helped me kind of balance my brain and be more creative also.
Beautiful. And on that note, we're going to have to end this segment of our show on prayer. I like that.
Yes, indeed.
All right. It's Touch TV, the fabric of the Black community. Olrie Roberts, head chef, owner of Zaz Restaurant in Hyde Park. My brother, thank you. We're going to bring you black. And hopefully we can get you as a sponsor of our show.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Okay.
Anytime. Absolutely.
All right. We're going to take a little pause for the cause. And when we come back, we have more information to build a nation coming from the world's greatest station. We'll be right back.
Negro, let the white man know that we are really ready and willing to pay the price that is necessary for our freedom. Our people will always be walking around here, second-class citizens, or what you call 20th century slaves.
Welcome, Black, to Touch TV, the fabric of the Black community. I'm your host, Brother Charles Clemons Muhammad. Of course, you are the best and the brightest. And remember, we come on Comcast, Channel 23, RCN, Channel 83, Verizon 1960, and anywhere in the world, www.bnntv.org. And when you go to the website, make sure you scroll down to Watch Now, Channel 23, click it, pow, bam, it's there. And then if you look up a little bit to the top right, VOD, Video on Demand, you get all of the past shows for the past 5 years. And of course, if you'd like to be part of Touch TV as a guest, or you know someone who wants to be a guest, or you might have a topic that you would like for us to discuss, you could text me at 617-334-4639. That's 617-334-4639, or email me at charles4boston@gmail.com. It's Touch TV, the fabric of the Black community. That's right. Feel, hear, and see the difference. Blacknificent. As we continue, my next guest is not a stranger to television, not a stranger to Boston, not a stranger to America, but sometimes, and it's an honor to me, I get mistaken for this young brother. That's right, this young brother. He is the minister of Muhammad Mosque, number 11, located in beautiful Uptown Grove Hall. Don't get it twisted. He is the minister. He's not the assistant minister. He is the minister of Muhammad's Mosque, number 11. And I'd like to welcome Minister Randy Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother.
And you know, it is an honor to be mistaken to be you, because that makes me 20 years younger.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah.
So let's start off with introducing you to our audience, those that may not know who Minister Randy is. How did you get involved with the Nation of Islam, and at what age, and why?
Thank you, first of all, Brother Charles, for inviting me on your program. It's an honor to be here. And likewise, it is an honor for me to be confused with you on several occasions because of the great work that you have done in our community.
Thank you.
Throughout the years. It is really funny when people come up to me, starting conversations as if though I'm you. But we are brothers.
Yes, sir.
But
That's
I've been
right.
in the Nation of Islam now for over 30 years. I came into the Nation of Islam.
Wait a minute. You don't even look 30.
Praise be to Allah. I'm
Or
trying.
about 30.
Yeah, about that. You know.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. I
30
came in when I
years.
was one. You know, no.
How
I
old
was,
were you?
I was a teenager. I was 17 when I first visited the mosque, 18 when I became official member of the Nation of Islam in 1989. And, you know, I was I was a young man involved in the culture of the streets growing up, you know, in Boston, as many of our young people who were coming up on the rough side of the hill. But I was really deeply involved at that time in hip hop culture as one of the things that I was involved in. And really back then it was a different culture with the music. The culture was very positive, was very conscious. There was a lot of conscious artists who were promoting black consciousness, and it was in a rap by one of my favorite rap group at that time, which was Public Enemy.
Okay.
And Chuck D had a verse where he said, "I'm a follower of Farrakhan. Don't tell me that you understand until you hear the man." And you know, he had several verses, and as an MC, because I was an MC, I used to rap and do hip hop myself. I was always keened in on the lyrics. And so I would listen to the lyrics, and that was one of the things about Chuck. He had this complicated rhyme flow that required you to really listen and pay attention to what he was saying. And as an MC, I would always decipher lyrics. And as I'm deciphering his lyrics, and you know, I picked up that there was a message in the music. There was a coded language that he was saying. And you know, the whole militancy with the S1Ws, he had the brothers on post, you know, and they had a real they had a different presentation, and there was a coded message in there. But one of the things that I picked up, he kept mentioning Farrakhan, Farrakhan.
Okay.
And that made me curious as to, well, who is Farrakhan? And so we finally got a chance to get a tape of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I heard the lecture that he gave in Madison Square Garden in 1985, which was Power at Last and Forever. And when I heard that, I remember coming in one day late. My brother and myself came in, and he had a tape, and we popped it in the tape recorder, and just sat there. And I was so mesmerized that we listened to the whole tape. And I've never, really enjoyed going to church and listening to sermons or preachers. That really wasn't my thing. But I was drawn to what he was saying. And when the tape finished, we flipped it and just sat there and listened to the whole thing. And
Wow.
and then when that side was over, we only had one tape. And I remember being so disappointed because it was a 2-tape lecture.
Okay.
So
And
I
Madison
wanted,
Square Garden.
yeah, it left me wanting more, but that started my journey into listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And, as a young man growing up in the hood, growing up in a culture of gang violence and the things that we get involved in, what I heard in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was an answer to the problems that we were facing, and it seemed like it was something that I was looking for my entire life.
Wow.
And so when I heard it, I was ready and I received it, and I knew that this was something that I needed in my life, and so I've never turned back from that point.
Now, you mentioned your brother.
Yes.
So this is your younger brother, your older brother, and how many brothers and sisters do you have, if any?
Well, I'm the youngest out of 8 siblings.
Wow.
In my mother's household. My father has 2 other, so I have 2 other siblings that are not of my mother, so it's really 10 of us. But out of my mother's household that we grew up together, I was the youngest of 8. And so I was with my brother, who was my older brother, who was just a couple years older than me, Brother Gatto.
Right, right.
Who we both came into the nation together, because we did a lot of things together. We was in hip hop together. We kind of ran the streets together, and
Right.
we joined the nation together. But yeah, so once we heard the minister, we knew, and I knew in particular, that this is what I needed in my life. And so by the grace of God, I've been with the Nation of Islam since then.
You mentioned running the streets. Now, when you was running the streets, a lot of us, we have our street names. You have a street name, and
Yeah, well, they called me Trigger in the streets.
like Trigger,
Yes, sir.
Gun Trigger.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Interesting.
So I mentioned about the culture, and it was in hip hop the culture was conscious, but when we talking about the 80s, mid to late 80s, hip hop was really conscious from its inception, but in that era, 85 was when the crack era, the crack epidemic came in, and the street culture kind of changed.
Yes, yes.
And so gang culture started. And so being a young man in that time, I was involved with a local street gang because we all, as youth, found ourselves with the brothers of our neighborhood kind of clicking up and forming crews just to defend ourselves and our territory as gang violence and the drug era came in. There was so much money being made off of drugs, which brought in the guns and the conflicts. And so most neighborhoods started to form crews, and which became gangs, or known as gangs, or street organizations, to defend their territory. And so, I was not, I was not saved. I was not excluded of that. I was a part of that culture.
Right.
Until, by the grace of God, I heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which really took me right out of that lifestyle and put me on the path that I'm on today.
You mentioned hip hop, and for our audience that might be just tuning in, we have Minister Randy of Muhammad's Mosque number 11. You graduated from Madison Park High School.
Yes.
My alma mater.
Yes.
All right. However, when you mention hip hop, there are some who are tuning in that might not be part of your generation or the generation or my generation, but hip hop was based on some principles: love, peace, unity, and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
But they use the word hip hop now. And where's the love?
Right.
Where's the unity?
Yes, sir.
Where's the having fun then?
Well, another one of my favorite artists, KRS-One, he had a rhyme. He said, "Hip is to know," right? Like we used to use that slang, like you hip. That means you know. You hip to this, you know. Hip is to know. It's a form of intelligence. Hop is a form of a movement. So hip and hop is intelligent movement, right?
Wow,
Hip is the knowledge,
I like that.
and hop is the movement. So hip hop initially was conscious, and it was a conscious movement. And so again, it led a lot of us to listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, or listening to Malcolm X tapes, and listening to Black leadership, and just being turned on to the Black struggle and Black history and Africa. But at a certain point, I use the terminology that our culture has been hijacked. And I think that when certain people in power realized the power of hip hop and how it was influencing the young people, that they came up with a plan to hijack the culture and turn it to what it is today, which is a self-destructive genocidal culture. And so they reward artists who promote gang culture, who promote drug culture, who promote misogyny, disrespect of women, drug use, all of these things that are very self-destructive to us. And a lot of the positive rappers that have a message, they're kind of shelved or put to the sidelines. And so we're trying to energize the hip hop culture. The hip hop artists have to come back. The conscious rappers got to come back,
Right.
and take responsibility over this culture that we've allowed others to take over and mislead our youth. Because the rappers today, due to the industry and the labels and those that control the labels and the music industry, unfortunately, the music industry and the hip hop culture today is like a Pied Piper, leading our young people right into the prisons and into mass incarceration. That is not a coincidence. That is by design. And so it requires, and what is needed is for our brothers, for us to step up and reclaim our culture, And so part of that is pulling our resources, as we're taught in the Nation of Islam under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We have to pull our resources, and now we have to own the industry. We have to own our own mediums of information.
Right.
We have to control it all.
That's right.
Because when you look at the popular rappers, they're all under the labels of those that are outside of our community.
Interesting. You mentioned the prison,
Yes.
the prisons, incarceration. What is your relationship with the prisons? And what type of work do you do with the prisons, if any?
Well, that's one of the things. When I came into the Nation of Islam, I was introduced into the prison ministry. Brother Student Minister Rodney Muhammad, who at the time was the assistant minister under Minister Don Muhammad, was going into the prisons. And he brought me into the prisons with him and introduced me to that as a young man who's coming from a gang culture, coming from the streets, who had reformed his life. I was brought in to speak to the brothers in the prisons.
Okay.
And that kind of started my journey in the prison ministry. I've been doing prison ministry now for, I would say, about at least 20 to 25 years.
Wow.
Because I was introduced and I served as a chaplain in the South Bay House of Corrections, the county prison. I served there. And for the last 13 years, I've been serving as a chaplain in the state prison system as well, where I visit all of the state prisons, the major state prisons in Massachusetts, and teach and provide spiritual guidance to those of our brothers who have want to follow the law and are behind the walls.
A member of the Nation of Islam for 30 years, prison ministry for 25 years. And you also were the assistant minister to Muhammad's Mosque number 11 before you became the minister. And I'm not going to say taking the place of Emeritus Don Muhammad, but
Filling them shoes.
them big shoes.
Yeah.
How long have you been the assistant minister for Muhammad's Mosque number 11? When did you become the minister?
I served as the assistant minister for Minister Don Muhammad maybe about 15 years ago or so. Minister Don had 2 assistant ministers in the city. He had myself serving as the assistant minister, and my duties primarily were relegated to running the mosque, the lectures in the mosque, the study groups in the mosque, the student ministry class, most of the things that revolve around running the mosque is what I was doing. And my brother student minister Rodney, was the assistant minister who worked the streets and was the public liaison, if you will. So he was in the streets representing Minister Don and Muhammad Mosque number 11. So there was 2, but I served as the assistant minister for well over 15 years of Muhammad Mosque number 11, not only in the mosque, but as we just discussed, in the prisons, which was also, my scope of the work as well, and also helping and serving in our study group in Providence, Rhode Island, and at one point we had a study circle in Lynn, Massachusetts. So, as the assistant minister to Minister Don, he would dispatch me as he saw fit. My primary responsibilities was the prisons and the mosque. But as of December of 2018, I was appointed by the East Coast Regional Minister, Abdul Hafiz Muhammad, who was working under the direct guidance and tutelage and directive of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He has appointed me as of last December as the minister of Muhammad Mosque number 11, attempting to fill the big shoes of our great beloved Minister Emeritus Don Muhammad.
Wow. Well, I can say that from the inside looking in and the inside looking out, and from the outside looking in, that you are definitely doing an awesome job. Just with the 10,000 fearless peacemakers, we went to the Million Man March, you and I, not together, but you went to the Million Man March.
Yes, sir.
I went to the Million Man March.
Yes, sir.
24 years ago. And if that wasn't a glimpse of heaven, standing shoulder to shoulder with brothers, black men,
Yes,
over 1 million,
that's right.
shoulder to shoulder from all denominations. You could have been a professional, you could have been a so-called gangbanger, which I like to call youth leaders.
Yes.
You could have been homeless.
It was a who's who of Black America. The Million Man March was a who's who. It involved everybody, from the clergy, regardless to your religious denomination, what church you was in. We came together across religious lines, across geographical lines, across organizational lines. We had the common man, we had the actors and the celebrities, we had the rappers and the musicians, we had the politicians. It was really a who's who of Black America. And one of the things that, you know, was very powerful, that it was also a who's who of all of the established, recognized Black leadership. I mean, Rosa Parks was at the Million Man March and spoke. Dr. Betty Shabazz was at the Million Man March and spoke. You know, Dr. Coretta Scott King was at the Million Man March and spoke. Maya Angelou was at the Million Man March and spoke. And I'm just raising these are powerful, iconic women who were at the Million Man March and spoke, not to mention every civil rights leader and organization that was present, and their leadership spoke.
President
from Jesse
Barack
Jackson.
Obama.
Well, President Barack Obama was in the audience.
Yeah.
He was just one in a million. But, you know, I'll say that it was the Million Man March that gave him the inspiration and the motivation to run for political office. And that's one of the things that, you know, we have to tell our story. No one is going to tell our story if we don't tell our story. Yeah. The Million Man March was the greatest event that happened in our lifetime.
That's right.
You know, and you know, there's a documentary out called Hidden Colors, and it goes into Black people's hidden history, things that we didn't know about ourselves, like the fact that Black people brought civilization to Europe via the Moors. They taught the early Europeans how to read and write, taught them mathematics and science, taught them really general civilization. When Europe was in the Dark Ages, it was Black people from Africa that civilized them. You know, it was Black people that were the first Native Americans, that were the first to inhabit this land. When you look up the Olmec people, which is in Mexico, the original Mexicans are Black people. And many of the original Indians that settled over here were Black people, the original people in Asia and really all over the planet. I mean, Black history is so extensive, right? So deep, but we don't know how great our people are. And so a documentary had to be made, a series called Hidden Colors, which goes to show us our great history. We seen a movie that came out called Hidden Figures a couple of years ago.
Right.
And Hidden Figures was about the Black women who were responsible for the mathematical calculations that allowed the astronauts to visit the moon and to return back safely. We didn't know that. They hid the fact that these were Black women that figured out the mathematical calculations. And so there's so much of our history that has been erased, that has been omitted. And I say that this is not coincidental. It is not an accident. They intentionally keep us from knowing our greatness. And so with that in mind, as I reflect on the greatness of the Million Man March, I see that there's an attempt to erase that from the pages of history. Yes. As great as that day was, you mentioned Barack Obama being there, but he was inspired there. And one of the initiatives of the Million Man March was a voter registration campaign. So after the Million Man March, over 1 million Black new registered voters came out. And I would say that the Black vote has determined every national election since the Million Man March, but they're not gonna give us credit for that. Right. You know, and so, yes, we was there. One of the initiatives of the Million Man March, well, I'll say that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wanted us to make our communities safe and decent places to live. 20 years later, he called us back under the campaign of Justice or Else, and he called for 10,000 fearless Black men who would be willing to stand between the gangs and the guns to bring peace into the Black communities. And again, just pivoting and going back, because that was one of the greatest accomplishments of the Million Man March. A lot of people try to spin it as if though the Million Man March was an insignificant event that was just a day of us frolicking. No.
That's right.
No. The Million Man March single-handedly changed the course of America. and drop the violence, the murder rate. The murder rate all over the country went down after the Million Man March. These are verifiable facts. Look at what the murder rate was in Boston, Massachusetts in 1994, in 1995. And then look at after the Million Man March, how the murder rate dropped every year since then. And truth be told, that the murder rates all over the country has still not gone back to what they were prior to the Million Man March till this day. But no one's gonna say that. Not only did the murder rate in Boston drop, the murder rate in New York drop, in California, in Washington, D.C., in Philly, in Chicago, in every major city after the Million Man March, the murder rate, the violence dropped. And everyone else tried to take credit for it. How the murder rate and the violence dropped in New York. Mayor Giuliani happened to be the mayor at the time. And he tried to credit his community policing, with the reduction in violence. You had those in Boston that wanted to take credit for the miracle in Boston. You had Bill Bratton, who was the police commissioner in Los Angeles, who became a big cop, known for reducing violence. But the reality is, it wasn't none of these folks. It was the spirit of the Million Man March and those men that went to Washington, D.C. and took serious their pledge to atone, take responsibility for our communities, and to go back to make them safe and decent places to live. That is one of the greatest accomplishments that we were able to accomplish, which was to reduce the violence. And so now, 20 years later, we see that it's the violence and the culture we're seeing an uptick. And so this is why the minister called and at the 20th anniversary for these 10,000 fearless peacemakers, because we have to stay vigilant. We have to stay in our community and really educate this new generation, because it's been 24 years since the Million Man March.
10,000 fearless peacemakers. We had the murder of the 74-year-old grandmother, Eleanor Maloney, in Mattapan.
Yes.
In April, the initiative of the 10,000 fearless was reunited.
Yes.
By you.
Yes.
Why? And what has happened since April of 2019?
Well, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wanted us to keep the local organizing committee together after the Million Man March. He called for the 10,000 fearless, and we started that initiative in Boston. And, it kind of fizzled out a little bit, after the march, and there was a lot of energy. But, one of the things that we as a people struggle with is the stick-to-itiveness and being consistent. Once we start something, there's not one silver bullet. We can't do one thing and think that it's gonna end our problems forever. The enemy's relentless. He's constantly working to bring us back and to keep our communities in chaos. So that fell apart. But when Eleanor Maloney, may she rest in peace, was murdered, I was called by our student captain, Brother Jamal, who told me about this shooting. Initially, it was a report of, I think it was a triple shooting, and I thought it was a triple homicide. And so I went right to the scene, and just being there and getting the news that a grandmother was murdered on her porch, just let me know that we had to re-enliven the 10,000 fearless, and it made me want to speak to the men, to the black men of Boston in our community. So we called for a meeting. I think Eleanor Maloney's shooting, I believe, happened on the 6th, which was a Sunday, April 6th. We called for a meeting that Thursday of all the men. We wanted to speak to the men.
Right.
Because we feel that it is the men's responsibility in our community to protect our women and our children.
That's right.
And our elderly. It's the police department's job, but it's our responsibility as men. So we wanted to call the men to hold ourselves accountable for changing the culture of violence in our community. And from that meeting that took place on April the 11th, we actually went out and hit the streets that night. You know, we wanted to have some direct action. We didn't want to just call a meeting to make it a venting session where we come out and complain about what's not happening and what should be done and who's not doing what. No, we wanted to call the men so that we could take personal accountability and responsibility. And we went out to promote peace. And we've been out since April 11th. We've been out every single week promoting peace in our community. And we started the 10,000 Fearless Peacemakers, which included us training the men that wanted to take on the responsibility of making their community safe and decent places to live. We had to give them a training because we don't want to just go out there willy-nilly. There has to be a commitment, a concerted effort for us to go on. We have to know what to do when we go out there. So one of the trainings that we had to give the men was a training called Love Thyself, because the number one problem in our community is a lack of love for self, you know, and this is what causes us to kill one another. This is what causes the violence. So if you're gonna go out there to promote peace, you gotta have love in your heart for your people. We had to teach the men conflict resolution skills. We had to teach them the proper handling of people. We had to teach them nonviolent crisis intervention. And we taught them and trained them in CPR and first aid. And so this past Sunday, we're happy to announce that we graduated the first class of bona fide, certified, card-carrying members of the 10,000 Fearless Peacemakers, who are now trained as peacekeepers and as first responders and know how to save a life, that we will be out there patrolling the streets of Boston to do our part in making it a safer and decent place to live. And we want to invite everyone, all the brothers, and now we're not only calling on just the men, but we're inviting our sisters who want to be peacemakers. Come on and join us. We started with the men because we wanted to make sure that we had a strong contingent, that when we're out in the community, we don't never want to put our sisters on the front line in harm's way. So we had to call the men first, but now we're open and we're inviting all of our people to come on and be a part of the Peacemakers.
Minister Randy, time flies when you're having fun, and this was a very enjoyable interview. We're gonna have you come back for
sir.
part 2. Let's give out contact information to be part of the 10,000 Fearless.
Well, we have a Stop the Beef hotline, which is on 617-419-0396. You can call this number if you need our assistance, if you're involved in the conflict and you would like a third party to mediate it. Give us a call, and for more information, you can call this number on how you can be a part of the Peacemakers. Once again, that is 617-419-0396.
All right. It's Touch TV, the fabric of the black community. Minister Randy Muhammad of Muhammad's Mosque, number 11, located in beautiful Uptown Grove Hall. We're done with our session today, and we'd like to say thank you. Thank you to the crew. Thank you to Minister Randy. And we're going to say we want you to come back. Yes, we definitely want you to come back. Minister Randy, I forgot to ask you, if folks want to go to the mosque, the days that the mosques are open and the times.
So we want to invite everyone to come out. If you want to hear more of the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have our main service Sundays at 11 o'clock. Doors open at 10:30. That is our main service. We also have a study group on Wednesday nights. Doors open at 7:30. We start at 8 o'clock sharp. And then on Friday evenings, we have a study group, which doors open at 7, and we begin at 7:30. All are welcome to come and participate and learn more of the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
There you go. There we have it. It's Touch TV, fabric of the black community. Mr. Randy Muhammad, thank you very much for being a part of It's my pleasure. The fabric of the Black community. Again, thank you to the crew. Thank you to you, and peace and blessings.